People in Greece took to the streets last night for dueling rallies. The nation sharply divided on a historic vote on that nation's economic future. Now it's only hours away. This morning, people lining up at banks and ATMs once again to withdraw the daily maximum of 60 euros, a limit in effect all week to prevent bank runs. Greece's leftist prime minister took to national television yesterday to urge voters to reject the strict terms of a proposed bailout. He says Greece can negotiate a better deal with its creditors. But backers of the bailout say a no vote will lead to Greece's exit of the euro and a tumultuous economic future. Polls ahead of tomorrow's referendum show the two sides are neck and neck. For the latest on the ground, we turn to NBC News foreign correspondent Keir Simmons in Athens. Keir, good morning to you.
Hey there, good morning. And those polls suggest now that the no vote is 1%, just 1% ahead, with 10% of people undecided. And you have to assume that they will decide at some point, because there is not a single person that you speak to in this country that isn't obsessively only talking about what's happening here, because of the fact that it is affecting everyone's lives, because no matter how much money you have in the bank, you're only allowed to take out just over $60 from the ATM per day, because they know that there are these real concerns that in the coming weeks there will be actual shortages of basic stuffs like food, like fuel, because the producers and importers aren't able to pay their bills because cash is quite simply running out in Greece. And so it leaves this weekend with many Greeks wondering whether it will make any difference, whether they vote no or whether they vote yes, and many saying that they think they should vote no as a matter of national pride. There is very, very strong emotions swirling around this. Those people who say they should vote yes say that Greece's future has to be tied to Europe, and that without Europe, Greece will be left isolated and on its own. So, Dara, the debate is continuing, complete division, complete splits here in Greece, and the decision will emerge, the poll will emerge sometime late tomorrow, we think, certainly Monday, and then we'll know what future for this country.
Truly is neck and neck. Thank you, Keir Simmons, for that report. Well, the news of Greece leading to a tumultuous week for the markets, with the Dow Jones, S&P 500, and the NASDAQ all dipping by week's end. And for a look at the ripple effect Greece's economic turmoil is having across Europe and the globe, we turn to Ron Isnana, a CNBC contributor and editor of Insana's Market Intelligence. Ron, so great to have you here. So first off, let's take a look at what this actually means for Greece, because this is a struggling economy, and we have supporters on the bailout. Some want the bailout, some don't. The Greek prime minister, he's the one saying no, vote no. What is your assessment here? Well,
they vote no, and they're effectively out of the Eurozone, and they get no money. And there are some reports suggesting that Greek banks could run out of money as early as tomorrow and then do what was done in Cyprus last year. It's called a bail-in, where the banks hold on to everybody's money and then haircut their deposits by as much as 30%. So if you have 100,000 euro in the bank, you'll get 70 when they reopen. Now, struggling is an interesting way to describe Greece. Their GDP has contracted 26%. Their unemployment rate is 26%. This is where the United States was in 1932 during the depths of the Great Depression. If they vote no, and again, this is, you know, pride goeth before the fall. If that's the reasoning that they want to use to vote no, they're not going to get immediate assistance from the European Union or the International Monetary Fund, and possibly not from the European Central Bank, which has been providing euros to the Greek banking system for the last several weeks.
You mentioned unemployment, which is absolutely key, and its youth unemployment is greater than 60% now.
Yep.
The Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz, he writes in The Guardian that accepting these strict austerity measures in the bailout deal would mean depression almost without end. That is a very, very severe prediction. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, Joe and Paul Krugman, the New York Times, economics writer and Pulitzer, and also Nobel Prize-winning economists, are anti-austerians. I mean, they argue that austerity doesn't make sense here. I would tend to agree with them in this instance, insofar as, Greece has very few options without getting additional funds and some debt relief. If they don't forgive some of the $271 billion in debt that Greece owes to European nations and just put on more restrictions on what they could do in terms of having to cut pensions, having to raise taxes, with these economic numbers that we already see, they will get worse. And one would assume that younger people in Greece would look for somewhere else to live because there are no job opportunities when you have unemployment that's going to go from 26 to more than 30%. In the case of youngsters, as you say, 60%, maybe even higher.
It's seeming almost like a no-win situation here, but what's your prediction ahead of tomorrow's vote?
Well, if it goes no, you're going to see a very sharp reaction in European markets that could spill over to the United States, clearly, in terms of markets. It won't affect the U.S. economy in any way, shape, or form, but it will call into question the situation in some of the weaker countries of Europe as well. Portugal, Spain, and Italy have similar debt profiles. Now, one would assume that Europe is going to ring fence those countries and not let them go through the same experience. They're too big to let fail. Greece has an economy the size of Miami. So from an economic perspective, if they're out of the union, it means very little to Europe. It means a lot to Greece, but it also means market turmoil if they end up falling out of bed tomorrow.
But still, we have that impact of the ripple effect.
Yeah, and you know what, just as an aside, Dara, China's market is down almost 30% in 3 weeks, and no one's paying attention to that, and that has some negative implications for world markets as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ron Isnana, always great to have you as a guest.
Thank you
so much for your input.